Imagine a world where Chinese electric vehicles, EVs, are dominating global markets, flooding Western roads and leaving Tesla and Ford in the dust. Sounds dramatic, right? Well, that's exactly the narrative being pushed by news outlets claiming that tariffs can't stop Chinese EVs. But here's the problem. It assumes there's an overwhelming demand for Chinese EVs to begin with. In reality, the biggest obstacle for Chinese EVs isn't tariffs, it's the cars themselves. Poor build quality, limited consumer trust, safety concerns, and a bloated, overproducing industry have done more damage than any government tax ever could. The idea that tariffs are the only thing keeping Chinese EVs from taking over is a fantasy cooked up by media hype. The mainstream narrative makes it sound like Chinese EVs are a runaway success, being held back only by US and European tariffs. But even without trade barriers, Chinese EVs would still struggle to gain traction in global markets. Here's why. First, nobody wants them. Consumer demand for EVs isn't as strong as the media claims, especially for low-trust, unproven brands from China. Then there's the issue of inferior build quality. Chinese EVs are often cheaper than their Western counterparts, but that cost-cutting comes at the expense of safety, durability, and performance. Add to that the limited charging infrastructure. Convincing people to switch to Teslas is hard enough, so why would they gamble on an even less reliable alternative? And then, there are the fire risks and battery issues. Reports of EV fires, battery failures, and costly repairs have made consumers cautious about EV adoption in general. A Chinese brand with even lower safety standards isn't exactly appealing. The idea that tariffs are the only thing stopping a Chinese EV takeover ignores these very real and very unfixable problems. One of the biggest open secrets in China's EV industry is that it's massively overproducing vehicles, leading to entire fields of unsold electric cars sitting idle. The government has been pumping money into subsidies and incentives, forcing automakers to keep churning out cars whether people want them or not. Instead of scaling back production to match demand, Chinese manufacturers are simply producing more than they can sell, leading to mass storage of unused cars. The fake demand problem comes into play here. Many Chinese EV companies rely not on market demand, but on government quotas and incentives to justify their production numbers. This has created a bubble waiting to burst. With thousands of unsold cars sitting in fields, China's EV industry is beginning to look a lot like its failing real estate sector: overbuilt, overhyped, and unsustainable. If Chinese EVs were truly irresistible and superior, why do they need massive government intervention to survive? Now, let's entertain the media narrative for a moment. What if every tariff on Chinese EVs was removed tomorrow? Would they instantly take over global markets? Not a chance. The truth is, brand trust matters. Consumers are loyal to brands they trust. Just as people hesitate to buy Chinese-made phones or appliances, they won't suddenly jump on board with Chinese EVs, especially when they're still skeptical about EVs in general. And then there's the issue of limited dealership and support networks. EV ownership requires reliable servicing, repairs, and software updates. Chinese EV makers lack the global infrastructure to support long-term ownership. Regulatory hurdles, such as safety, emissions, and data privacy laws in the US and Europe, would make importing Chinese EVs a logistical nightmare, even without tariffs. It's not just about price. Even if a $20,000 Chinese EV showed up in the US, people wouldn't be rushing to buy them when they don't trust the brand, can't get repairs, and have concerns over reliability. So, why does the media push the tariff narrative so hard? The answer is simple. They need a villain. The media loves oversimplified good versus evil stories, and in this case, tariffs are the bad guy preventing progress. It also fuels trade war drama. Claiming that the US or Europe is afraid of Chinese EVs makes for a more exciting headline than admitting they're just bad cars no one wants. This narrative also distracts from China's own failures. The Chinese EV market is in a self-inflicted crisis, but blaming tariffs makes it seem like outside forces are the problem, rather than China's own overproduction and quality issues. By constantly focusing on tariffs, the media can pretend that the world is desperate for Chinese EVs, when the reality is that most people wouldn't buy them, even if they were free of tariffs. The harsh truth is that Chinese EVs aren't taking over. If Chinese EVs were truly unstoppable, they wouldn't need media spin, government subsidies, or fake demand to survive. The global EV market isn't growing fast enough to absorb the flood of overproduced Chinese cars. Tariffs aren't the issue. Quality, safety, and brand trust are. The idea of a Chinese EV takeover is more media fantasy than market reality. The next time you see a headline saying tariffs can't stop China's EV industry, ask yourself, can an industry really be unstoppable if no one actually wants the product?